Good afternoon, folks, and welcome back to the Zach with an H podcast. Back with a lot of great stuff coming at you this summer. We've got JC Parets. You know him from All Star Charts. He's the founder of Trend Lab, something that was a long time coming. You can find him on the morning show. He's got his Tuesday afternoon show he'll be doing right after we finish here, Wednesday mornings as well. JC, glad to be with you. Get into your career and talk about the many great insights you've created and helped put out into the world regarding technical analysis.
No, I appreciate the invite. Happy to be here. This is great. This is fun. I love this. These are the things that I like to talk about. I like to talk about process. I like to talk about some tough lessons. Not only does it help people listening, but it reiterates it to myself. Like it brings back bad memories, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder of uranium stocks falling apart. That will stay with me forever, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for those situations. So it's good.
And of course, we go back to the beginning because to get where you are today, there's a whole lot of steps you have to go through. You got to live a life. You got to figure out what you want to do. You got to go to school in most instances, get out and work your way up. So, what did young JC Parets first want to do with his life? First inkling you had at a job that you wanted.
I just wanted to party, and I just wanted to throw a good party, have a good time, and that was really it for me. I played baseball in college, and got a good education and everything like that. But I was just young and sort of immature, and I think I really started to smarten up when I had my first internship my junior year in college. I went to Fairfield University in Connecticut. And, I didn't grow up with a family, that talked about the market at the dinner table. Like I talked to my wife, I'm like, holy shit, Bitcoin is ripping. She's like, is that good? I'm like, it's good for us. She's like, all right. Like we didn't talk like that in how I grew up. Like my parents were not in the market. I grew up in Miami, Cuban immigrant parents. And so when I went to school in Connecticut, it's very different. A lot of my friends had uncles on Wall Street or parents and financial advisors, hedge funds, the whole thing. I mean, it's right next to Greenwich, Connecticut, the hedge fund capital of the world. A lot of my friends from Long Island, New Jersey, New York, Brooklyn, like their families are in the business, one way or another. So it was very different. And so my interview in Merrill Lynch was a joke. They just got Fairfield kids every summer. I was just next in line, so like I was like, all right, cool. I felt love at first sight. Totally love at first sight. And that the rest is history. But before that, I had no idea. I didn't care. It's not that I didn't care. I cared. I just hadn't figured it out yet. So I was just, enjoying being a college student, really.
And for those out there that did not follow JC in his Fairfield years, he made 6 appearances with an ERA just over 7. He had 5 walks and 2 strikeouts in 11 innings. Gave up a couple of home runs, but and I quote you on this from a previous pod that you did, that you held it down against number 15, Florida International, during your time at Fairfield. But of course, you talk about that Merrill internship, which I know for you talk about as your big springboard. So what was it, JC, about that internship that made you fall in love with the industry?
I just love the numbers, I guess. Kind of like the pattern recognition, even though I kind of hadn't learned technical analysis yet. It was kind of just like, hey, this is what a stock is, this is what a bond is, this is what a mutual fund is. Like it was really that stuff that I was like, okay, I'm getting this. It wasn't until, I ultimately I hit a fork in the road where I was like, all right, I need to learn something. Right. So I was a retail stockbroker, and, there were guys that managed a whole bunch of money that were a lot older than me, twice my age, 3 times my age, and they didn't know anything about the market, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I was like, man, I do not want to end up like that guy. Like that would be terrible. So I was like, all right, so do I get my MBA? But I don't really want to climb up the corporate ladder and be that's not for me. So that was out. And then I was like, I can get a CFA and learn more about like companies and analyzing companies, or I can get my CMT, which is more about analyzing stocks and other securities. I was like, yeah, that's way better. So I want to do that. Little did I know at the time how impactful that decision would actually end up being for the rest of my life, not just my career, but how it's really impacted everything, my travels around the world, everything. I mean, that decision to get my CMT, wow, what a great decision that was. Good job, young JC there. And that was, the rest is history. I was through like the third chapter of like the Murphy book, Technical Analysis of Financial Markets. I was on chapter 3 and I was like, I am in. This is for me, because for the first time ever, things really started to make sense. Like, there are actual things that like we know about the markets that we can use to our advantage, when prior to that, I was looking at company fundamentals. What did I know? I didn't know anything, right? I was reading the newspaper. Like, what? Good luck, right? So technical analysis is the first thing that like really kind of was like, wow. So that took it to a whole new level. So it was love at first sight with Merrill, but I was still lost for a few years. And it probably wasn't until I was like 25, really, that I was like, aha, maybe 24, 25.
Eureka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you went from being spent 6 years at West Rock Advisors, and then 2011. I know you had been looking to start a blog, but you wanted to find a way. Or you figured something was missing, and so you kind of got into the blog space, a place that a lot of people were, which has kind of become today's podcast space, is yesterday's blog space. But you started up All Star Charts, which officially came out, and correct me if I'm wrong, in 2011.
Yeah,
So
all my friends had blogs, right? Like, all the guys that I was hanging out with, like StockTwits was like new and fresh and cool, and like Twitter was new, and like everybody's talking. And then like I lived in New York City, so the financial community was very strong, obviously in New York, and that was the case in social. So for a long time, like there was just a lot of people in New York, so like happy hours and dinners and stuff like that are like, oh, you're meeting Zero Beta. We're having dinner with Zero Beta today, or we're having dinner with Alpha Trends. Alpha Trends is in town, because if you lived in New York City, like you were at these happy hours and things like that. But if you did not live in New York City, you lived in Denver or in San Diego or Chicago, you were going to come to New York City for one reason or another if you're in this business. So then it was always like, hey, so and so is coming into town. We're all getting together. So I got the opportunity to meet a lot of people. Just a lot of my friends had blogs. I was in that world, but I was still, the industry hadn't isn't where it is today in terms of, from a regulatory standpoint, allowing just free speech, even if it's archived. I mean, that was very early on. So it's very difficult for me to be able to do that. And so finally in 2011, I was able to do that. And that was the beginning of All Star Charts as a blog. And then ultimately that turned into, a paid research business in 2014, when I was managing a hedge fund, just because I was doing the work anyway. So if nobody bought it, I still had to do the work. That's
yeah.
how I thought about it. I was like, yeah, sure, pay me to do the stuff I'm doing anyway. Yeah, great. And the rest is history.
And so with All Star Charts, so of course that became soon after your full time thing. So what was it when you were starting out that you kind of noticed that helped make All Star Charts unique in a way that others were not? And of course, to the level of growth that we've seen it to now in 2025, where you're able to offer full time services to other people that want it, and you're putting out the best of every morning, and then finishing that up in the afternoons as the market closes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of things. I mean, I think first of all, I think it was I didn't reinvent anything. Like, all the stuff that you hear me talk about, I didn't invent. I mean, we came up with a few things, but like at the end of the day, I invented none of this. This is all things that I've learned from my predecessors, or from, things I've read, or experiences, or conversations. I mean, this is a collection of 22 years of every day, going at it, at bats every day. Let's go, and you learn a lot of things along the way, right? Is really what it is. So I think my ability to explain what could theoretically be very complex and complicated subject matter in a simple way, I think has been really helpful, in terms of my growth throughout my career. So like being able to talk to somebody like a normal person instead of using all this jargon, like being like real like that. Like, I think that has certainly helped me. And at the end of the day, I look at more charts than anybody in the world. I mean, that's really what it is. And so I put in the work, and that's really helpful. There's some luck involved in all of this, but at the end of the day, me going out with the confidence that I could talk to you, and I know what the market is doing. I've looked at every chart. Like, I could tell you what's going on in the market. Will I be 100% right in what I think it's going to do next? Of course not. But man, am I prepared to make that decision as best as possible. And I could walk around with the confidence knowing that. And maybe I don't look at more charts than anybody in the world. But if there is anybody out there that does, I know who they are. They're good friends of mine. I can name them right now. And I'm probably pretty close to them and we're in the same conversation. Like that's how I think about it.
Yeah, and now it's evolved too, and I mentioned this in the beginning. We see you on air every day. So you and Steve Straza, Spencer Israel, and the rest of your team. For you personally, though, JC, what's your favorite part of getting on air every day? And how rewarding would you say it's been to kind of be able to be in that space and go from you're doing all the homework to now you kind of get to show it and make it so much simpler for so many people every single day of the week?
No, I appreciate that. I spent a long time in New York, running that rat race and, being on every network and hosting CNBC Fast Money and Fox and ABC and CNN. I mean, I did them all, right? Bloomberg all the time, with Trish Regan. I remember that. That was a lot of fun. Like, you know, I had a lot of those experiences. So I've paid my dues in terms of like kind of being on air to kind of understand the way it works and understanding a lot of the conflicts of interest that, financial media has versus investors. Like in financial media, their business, traditional business is not to help you make money or to give you the information you need to know. Their business is to get you to watch and to come back and watch some more so that they could sell sponsorship to pharmaceutical companies, and insurance agencies, right? I mean, that at the end of the day, that's their business model. It doesn't make them bad people, quite the opposite. I've had great experiences. Like these are some of my favorite people in the world. That these are producers and anchors in financial television. So, but what I think is important to understand is that we're different businesses. We're in the business of making money in the market, not you know keeping butts in the seat so we could
Yeah.
sell man enhancement pills, right? Like that's not what we're in the business of doing.
Yeah.
Like so. And then the morning show, for example, we get on at 8:30 and go until the market opens up. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the same thing that I would be talking to Steve about as I was on the phone with him that morning. He's like, oh, you see Bitcoin last night? Oh, man, Japanese yields are getting crushed. Oh, do you see Tesla pre-market? Oh, because we're having this conversation anyway, right? So you might as well turn the camera on. And it goes back to, my earlier point, JC, why did you start selling the research? It's because I was doing the work anybody. If nobody bought it, I still had to do the work. So in this case, if nobody's watching, I'm still talking to Steve about what's going on in the market. Like but this really gives us an ability to bring in guests, as well, which is really cool. Like the audience obviously loves it, but what about me? I love it too. Are you kidding me? I get to talk to some of the smartest people in the world and this business every morning. Like that is such a blessing. So there's a lot of selfishness in all of this, right? Like I'm super thrilled that people love it, and we have a great audience, and the community is amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, that's awesome, but like I'm no martyr here. I'm winning too, right?
And with Trend Labs, JC, something that just recently came out a couple of months ago, but I know that was something you put a whole lot of time into. How would you talk about its early days, and then what kind of things do you hope to see with it as it evolves and as it kind of goes forward in the coming months of 2025?
That's a great question. And this is something, speaking of selfishness, this is something that's very near and dear to me. So All Star Charts is a research company, and it started out because I was managing a hedge fund, and a lot of my LPs were traders at other hedge funds, like Market Wizards hedge funds, and like the big ones. No names need to be mentioned, but at the end of the day, I found out later on that they were just giving me money because if you're trading a hedge fund, you can't trade your own stuff because of conflicts of interest and stuff like that. So you have to invest in other hedge funds. So you're not participating in the decisions, right? You're outsourcing those decisions, and you're able to do that in as part of your employment contract. So I had a bunch of those LPs that were traders at hedge funds. And what I learned later on is that the only reason they were giving me money is so that they can get access to my research to help them in their day job. I'm like, all right, I see you. So I was like, all right, maybe other people are interested in this stuff too. And then, I'll sell that. And if you're an LP of mine, then you get it for free, right? I mean, you're getting for free anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, great. And then that just took off, right? So I already had All Star Charts for years, 3-4 years at that point. So I already, had already this built-in equity. So, pretty much right off the bat, we were in business, and real revenues were coming in. So I went on and I focused on that. I moved out to California. I left New York City. I moved out to California. I'm like, hey, I'm going to turn this half-ass side hustle into an actual business, right? And it's going to take 2 years. My girlfriend, my wife at the time, my wife now, we have 3 kids. She was my girlfriend at the time. We moved out to California. It was a 2-year plan, turned into 5 because it was awesome. We were in Hawaii all the time, Vegas, no kids. Fantastic. We lived out in Sonoma. I became a certified sommelier.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then sure enough, then I ended up selling All Star Charts to Tiffin, which is an AI company. So that was, a big exit for me as like, an entrepreneur. And then, ultimately I ended up buying All Surcharge back. So we have All Surcharge, we have Stock Market Media, and then All Surcharge still to this day is a research company for traders and hedge funds and financial advisors, and that's what it is. Trend Labs is me, right? Trend Labs isn't this service for, these different people that need all these different things, and we provide the research and the data and the analytics for all these, traders and money managers and PMs all over the world. That's what All Star Charts is. Trend Labs is me. This is how I look at the market for what's best for me and my money, right? So at this
Yeah.
point, I've accumulated some assets. I'm a much different person than I was in my late 20s when I started All Star Charts, right? I was a single guy living in New York City. And now I am in the suburbs with a family and 3 kids and, real estate. And I'm looking to buy more real estate. And I have multiple strategies. So, I'm continuing to diversify my strategies and build more and more uncorrelated strategies to add to my portfolio to lower that portfolio volatility, but at the same time, increase the compounding of returns because we're lowering the overall portfolio volatility, because we have 4 or 5 different strategies running at all times. And that's my main goal right now as a father, as a head of a household, as just an overall businessman, and focused on, building that wealth with the assets that I've already accumulated. That's priority number one for me. So the fact that I don't know any better, I've had a blog for 15 years, so I just write every day. So I need a way to talk to people about, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is the strategy. This is where we get the data. Look what we're doing. Blah blah blah. That's what Trend Labs is.
And so as it continues to go forward, and as your own star kind of continues to go up, talking about people that want to get involved in the space now, whether they're coming out of college, whether they're 15, just trying to take an interest. And of course, when you came up, we talked about the blog being king, the start of Twitter. Of course, now there's a couple of other different outlets. You got the podcast space. What advice would you offer to someone who wants to do something similar to what you want to do and really kind of get into the business?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to like it, right? For me, I don't have to work a day in my life. Like I felt it was love at first sight. I was 21 years old, living in New York City, interning in Merrill. Like this was for me. Like this, I ate it up alive. I loved every second of it, and I've never looked back. So for me, this is a no-brainer. Sure, I'm not an idiot. I know that if I did that right, I'm going to make a lot of money. That didn't hurt, obviously, but that wasn't like the primary reason for why I'm in this business. Like, yes, I can make a lot of money, and I have, and like, great, yes. But I really did love it, and you have to love the process, and it because you're going to have bad days and bad weeks and bad months and maybe even bad years, throughout the process. And if you don't love it, that's gonna suck. It's gonna suck even if you love it. So imagine if you don't love it, then man, that must be really, really torture. So like that's how I think about it. So that's number one. Number two, I'm old school. I started in the days of social media when my mentors were like, just share, 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 share. You think something, write it, send it out. You think something, write it, send it out. Like just share your thoughts and through that and through those lessons, obviously I've been able to build businesses and sell them and create new ones, and like, yes, all that's great, but it's really like the friends that I've made along the way, I can't even begin to tell you. And those friends that I made along the way have certainly shaped my view and perspective on markets, no question. And I don't just mean friends in New York or in Miami or Chicago or San Diego. These are friends in Singapore and Dublin and Amsterdam and Paris and London and in Manila and Kuala Lumpur and Australia and New Zealand and India, Mumbai. Like I have more friends in Mumbai. This is a true story. I grew up in Miami and I lived in New York forever. So obviously I have a lot of friends in Miami, a lot of friends in New York and various parts of the country.
Yeah.
I will go to Mumbai and more friends of mine will stop what they're doing, come party with me than if I did that in New York or Miami combined, right? That's how like I love Mumbai and how many trader friends I have there. It's crazy. It's crazy how many. I mean, Mumbai, there's a lot of people there, obviously, but
Yeah.
I have so many. So none of this would be possible if I wasn't, you know, on a blog, writing, sending that to my email list, kind of just contributing to the community and the financial conversation. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have all those friends. I wouldn't have had all these experiences. I wouldn't have all these unique perspectives. I don't think like an American as far as the market's concerned anyway. I think like an earthling, right? Getting those different perspectives has certainly framed that. So, for me, the advice is put it down on paper, send it out, travel around the world, talk to traders, go down to Argentina, talk to traders down there, go to London and Greece and Amsterdam and Brussels and Dublin, and go and talk to traders, and go to Asia, go to Kuala Lumpur, go to Hong Kong. It's freaking awesome. Go eat as much as humanly possible and talk to as many traders as possible. Tokyo, oh my God, forget about it. All these expats out there in Tokyo, these are old Morgan Stanley guys and stuff like that. They're all out there doing their thing. Taipei, good times in Taipei. Ton of Americans, ton of New Yorkers there in Taipei. Go out there, talk to traders. I'm telling you, it's invaluable, to the point where I sent 2 of my top traders to Asia, to 6 different countries, to do exactly that. And I paid for the whole thing. You know why? Because I know it's going to pay me back tenfold, because them learning and having that perspective is going to make them better at their jobs, which is going to make me a lot of money.
And of course, the more you see, the more you can broaden your horizons, the more knowledge you can bring in. You kind of become almost, you can't surpass that, because you're not only bringing in your local perspective, right? You're kind of going all over the place. So essentially, it's anyone that wants to get involved, do the work, put up with, got to make it through the mud, get out of the mud. You might get rained on a little bit, but the umbrella will kind of see you through to the end.
Just keep fighting, man. You're gonna have some dark days, and you're gonna have some great days. The idea is to kind of keep a balance. I used to live on 34th Street and Park Avenue in New York City, and my office was on 45th and Park. So I had literally the same walk right up Park to work and back from work, to work and back from work every single day. And then sometimes I noticed after the fact that, like, sometimes I'd walk like back from work or to work, like I am, like, I'm killing it. I'm like, I am the next Warren Buffett. Like, are you kidding me? I can't miss. I am the man. I'm the next Paul Tudor Jones. Forget about it. I'm new king in town. And the very next day, it's like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. Like, what am I even doing? Like, this is my job. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not good at this. This is terrible. And then, like, the next day, oh, I'm the man. Look out. Here we go. Who's the man? Next Warren Buffett right here. And the next day, what am I doing? I don't. And like those ups and downs, and I only caught that because it was literally the same walk back and forth. And all of a sudden I was like, man, my emotions are on another level. Like, this is not okay. So I had to, like, really, like, tone that down and, like, make sure that, like, when times are good, it's probably not as good as you think. And when times are bad, it's probably not as bad as you think. It's kind of like how I approach life now.
Appreciate that insight. And now, JC will do a quick rapid fire before we sign off. So, you're a big Dolphins fan. I know that one's a given. Now, up where you grew up, now do you still hate them? The Jets are among the 3 things you hate the most in life. Jets accounting and the Florida Gators. That's for later. Favorite Dolphins fan moment in recent memory, if there is one. I know it's been tough sledding the last couple of seasons.
I saw you sent me the doc, and I was thinking about that. I was like, favorite Dolphins moment, man. It was like probably like back in the day, when I was younger, going to the Dolphin games with my dad. That was really cool. My whole like life, I remember like the Dolphins going up to kick a field goal to win the game. And I remember like praying, like literally, I remember praying, be like, God, if he makes this field goal, I swear to God, I'm going to do my homework right on time for the rest of my life. I swear to God, just make this field goal. Like, I remember it meaning so much to me. And then just being there with my dad, Sundays in Miami in September, frying because it was hot as hell. Those are great memories. And the Hurricanes too, for that matter, right? Going to the Orange Bowl with my dad,
Yep.
Early on, that was really cool. So we'd go to Hurricanes and Dolphin games, forever. Yeah.
And you're cool. You became a sommelier in 2020. I know there's a whole nuance behind that. But the short version, do you have a coolest moment for you since you? And I know you're also a sake advisor, but we'll stick to the sommelier one. Coolest moment for you while having that title.
Coolest moment as a sommelier, it's a good question. What's cool about being a sommelier is like you don't walk around and like tell people that. Sometimes I go to dinner with people and like they're like, oh, he's a sommelier, so he knows, they always tell the waiter that, and I feel like such an idiot. They always do that. But like, when you don't need to tell the sommelier that you're a sommelier. They know when you're asking certain questions, like they know that you're properly trained, so they really help you. And then, they know that so they just bring you stuff. So like and I don't have to like be like, oh, I'm a sommelier and I'm working on my advance and no, I'm a winemaker in Napa. Like I don't need to get into all of that. It's almost like a secret code, like a kind of like an unsaid, like he knows I got, like he's one of us. Like that's what's probably the most eye-opening thing, how easy it is to get across to the sommelier that, without having to say a word.
Okay. JC Parets, a pleasure chatting with you today about your career, about where things are going, advice to those that want to follow suit. Any closing thoughts before we sign off today?
Listen, man, I think that we are incredibly blessed in the current day and age to be able to have one another to share ideas and kind of pass down, wisdom. Your father has taught me a whole bunch of things and has taught a lot of the people who have taught me. So, the whole mentorship, thing has existed for a long time, even before blogs. But, today more than ever with blogs and podcasts and everything, there's so much great content, and we have each other to navigate markets with, and a lot of our predecessors didn't have that. These were much more lonely endeavors, or you were confined to a specific region of the country where you lived, and that's where you traded, and like those were the people. The fact that we can have friends and colleagues all over the world in every major city on the planet. I could pick up the phone and call them. Maybe not everybody has that kind of Rolodex, but that's not the point. Like anything in that direction is so incredibly valuable. Having a community to bounce ideas from and to get ideas back from them, truly blessed. So, there's some bad apples out there. Of course, there's always going to be, but tune that out and focus on the big picture. And, you could learn a lot about this market very quickly with the mentorship out there.
JC Parets, founder of Trend Labs. We will see you next week, folks, as we will have Jordan Yee from Major League Table Tennis.